Hello, thank you for tuning in to our first episode in our PowerShell series. Today we will be introducing PowerShell and some simple commands to get you started. But first, let's answer some common questions. One being, what is PowerShell? Well, PowerShell is a cross-platform command line shell and scripting language. It enables task automation and environment configuration in Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So there are two particular products to take note of with PowerShell. The first is Windows PowerShell, and the second is PowerShell. What's the difference? Well, Windows PowerShell is the version that is shipped with Windows, which means that it's pre-installed, and it uses the full .NET framework. This version is no longer being updated with new features, but it is useful for Windows automation and administration. Now the other product, PowerShell, is built on new versions of .NET. .NET is different than .NET Framework. .NET is more modern and it enables cross-platform development. This version, PowerShell, is equipped with new features and, depending on the version you're using, long-term support. So another question is, how can we use it? Well, there are built-in commands in PowerShell, also known as CMDlets. These CMDlets enable workflow for various use cases. These CMDlets, as we mentioned, are native PowerShell commands, and they can be written in any compiled .NET language or in the PowerShell scripting language itself. These CMDlets use verb-noun pairs, with the verb identifying the action the CMDlet performs, and the noun identifying the resource on which the CMDlet performs its action. So the primary usage of PowerShell can be cloud management, developing continuous integration or continuous deployment pipelines, also known as CI/CD pipelines, and other automation tasks. Therefore, it is useful for system administrators, DevOps, CloudOps, and developers. As we mentioned prior, all modern versions of Windows operating systems ship with PowerShell installed. If you're running a version older than 5.1, however, you may consider upgrading to the latest version. Now, in this simple demonstration, we're using Windows Terminal, which is a modern, customizable terminal application that can be downloaded from the Windows Store. If you're using Mac OS or Linux, you also can just use the integrated terminal that is provided with the IDE or Integrated Development Environment when you install PowerShell. It should be able to run the same exact commands that we're running here. Now, the first thing we're going to do is check our directory for files. Typically, this could be done via the dir or dir command for Windows or the ls command for Linux and Mac OS. With PowerShell, we would write it like this. Following the verb-noun pattern, we'll type get child item. So what is this command doing? This command lists the items in a directory, so that could be files or folders. Let's give it a try. Alright, as we can see, this is our present working directory, and this is the path based on the C drive, which is where we're currently located. And the directory contains one item, which is test directory. And as you can see, there's a single digit over here for the letter D. So this D signifies a directory in this instance. And we also can tell that it's a directory because the length is not available, so it's not a file. A file will have the size listed here. So as you can see also, we did receive one result. So this test directory is a folder that I had created earlier. So just for testing purposes, let us create a test file now. And we'll reuse the get child item command in order to see the changes. In PowerShell, you can create a new file and also directory with the new item command. Now, we're going to keep things simple here. We're just going to create a file. So here we'll type new item, And here, in between the command, we need a parameter. So as you can see, I type space, new item space, and this parameter in this instance is going to be the name of the file that we wish to create. So here, we're just going to call this file test file, since we're just following naming conventions, since we're just testing out things here. So let's do test file, and I'll just hit enter. Now, as you can see, in our current working directory, we have now created the test file. And like we mentioned earlier, the test file has a length because it does have a size since it's a file. And the D letter is missing in this in the mode, which signifies that it is different than a directory. As we mentioned, this is a file that we created. So uh, we also are going to want to check to see if it actually did create this file. So I'm going to teach you a little tip or trick here from when you're navigating through prior commands that you have typed in the command line. Instead of retyping the whole command, though here's a forewarning, if you're new, you may wish to be typing each command out, as it's going to help you memorize the commands and learn what you need to know in order to more efficiently manage the command line. But in this instance, it's also a useful tip is using the up and down arrows on your keyboard. So this lets you navigate between your most recent commands. So if I were to hit the up arrow one time, we can see new item test file. That is the last command that we had typed in. So if we wanted to access the command before that, which is a get child item, we could hit the up arrow again. And as you can see, this can save you some time when you're entering commands in a command prompt, especially if there are multiple parameters, and a single typo could lead to errors or unexpected results. So this can be a useful feature when you're typing extended commands, and it saves you a lot of time as well. So let's hit enter here to check our current directory. Now, as you can see in our present working directory, ep-1-PowerShell, we now have a new item in this directory, and that is the test file. That is what we had created with the new item command. So let's discuss maybe some more, something else that you may do in another operating system that could be useful here is moving the file. So moving the file can be done using another command, and like we mentioned, these follow the verb noun pattern. Move item. It's as simple as that. So let's give it a try. We'll do move item space. Now with this command, we're actually going to be inputting two parameters. A parameter before was used in order to decide the name of the file. We need two parameters here. One to choose the name of the file that we wish to move, which will be the first parameter. In this case, it'll be test file, so we'll do test file. And like we mentioned prior, these commands can be used with directories as well, or folders. But in this instance, we're keeping it simple. We'll move item, and then we're going to move the item test file into a destination. Now that destination is going to be the test directory folder. So as you can see, we're going to be moving that file into the directory. Let's give it a try. Alright, so as you've noticed, this time when we hit enter, there is no output. Not all commands will yield output. So if we want to double check to make sure that the file is no longer in our present working directory, ep-1-PowerShell, we're going to want to try the get child item command again. So I'll hit up twice, and in this instance, like I mentioned, you may wish to be typing this out in order to help you memorize and learn the commands. We'll hit enter, and perfect. It looks like that the file has been moved. It's no longer in this current directory. Now, what if we wanted to check the test directory to see if the file was in there? Well, the get child item we've been typing with no parameter. In this case, if we wanted to check the test directory, we could use it as a parameter with the command in order to see what lies within that directory. So let's give it a try. But first, just to clean up our window, I'm going to use the clear command. So typically when you're operating on Windows and you're using the old MS-DOS or the old command prompt, uh, this command would be CLS for close, and that would clear your window for you. In Linux and Mac OS, it's clear. And in PowerShell, it's also clear. And let me show that here. Well, there we go. This is just another tidbit of information for you. Clear is actually an alias command in PowerShell. The actual command, let me do some get child item command in order to fill up our window a little bit again. So the actual name of that command, clear, clear is an alias for clear host. And this is just simply educational. You may wish to certainly use clear because it's shorter, it's easier to remember. But it's important to note that PowerShell has a lot of different uses, and some of the commands you may be using in the command line may be aliases for other commands. So let's try it out. Clear host, enter. And as you can see, it did the exact same thing as clear. So there are different ways to achieve the same thing, and it's up to you to decide what works best in your instance. Especially using clear could save you some time. But as we mentioned, we would like to check the test directory to see what lies within it. So we will do the get child item command, and in this case, the parameter is going to be the test directory. And this will show us any items, files, or folders that lie within the test directory. Let's give it a try. Perfect. As you can see right here, this test directory has been appended onto the path from which we were operating. So instead of checking the ep-1-PowerShell folder, since we entered this parameter up here, it has appended that path onto this directory path, and that is how we have been able to check the contents of that directory. So this can be used in a lot of different ways. You know, if you have maybe a path on a different drive, like let's say it's your D drive and it's just, you know, another test folder. Well, you could type something like, I'll show you here, test folder, and I'll go back here a little bit. We could do get child item, and in this instance, it would show us the contents of that folder on the D drive. But that's not necessary here in this example. So something else I would like to show you is the set location command. Now, the commands I've been showing you are useful for file manipulation and for navigating through the file system. Set location following the verb noun pattern enables us to set the location of our present working directory. Now, right now, our present working directory is the ep-1-PowerShell path. So if you look here, this is our full path with this being our present working directory. And now if I do set location, and in this we want to go into the test directory. So we are going to use the test directory as the parameter. So set location test directory. Let's give it a try. Perfect. And as you can see, I'll clear the window here in a sec, but as you can see, our new path now lies within the test directory. That means that we're currently working in the test directory. So let's hit clear so we can clear up our window. Now, we want to check, we already checked to see if the file is in this directory, but I want to show you something new as well. So let's do get child item to see if the item is actually in this directory like we did earlier. And there it is. This is our present working directory. And using get child item, we're able to see that the test file is there. But what if we wanted to move this file again? Let's say we wanted to move it into the ep-1-PowerShell. Well, I'd like to show you another tip or trick here. When you're operating on the command line, there are not just aliases for other commands like the clear command, which is an alias for the clear host PowerShell command, but there are other commands as well, such as, or other aliases as well, such as a single period and two single periods. These periods represent, the single period will represent the present working directory, which in this instance is test directory. And two periods will represent the parent directory of the present working directory. So two periods would signify ep-1-PowerShell. So let's go ahead and attempt to move this file again into the parent directory. So let's do move item, and this will be able to show you what I mean. We'll do move item test file, and we want to move this into the ep-1-PowerShell directory, which if we wanted to use the full path here, we could move it into that directory. But it saves you time when you use these aliases, and that's why, especially if you're writing scripts, which we'll be doing in further episodes, this is a simple way to refer to a directory, even if you maybe don't know the name of the directory. So in this case, we want to move it to the parent directory, and like I mentioned, two single periods is an alias for the parent directory. So let's give it a try. Period, period. So that's the parent directory, in this case ep-1-PowerShell. Enter. Alright, well there's no output, so let's check the directory to make sure that the file has been moved. We'll use get child item, and as we can see, the directory is empty. Now what if we wanted to check the parent directory? Well, we could do the same thing with the two single periods. So we'll do get child item period period. And as you can see, even though we are currently working within test directory, this path right here does not include the test directory. It only goes up to our parent working directory, which further shows that the two single periods signifies the parent directory here. And we can also see that the file has been moved into that directory, which is what we had done with the move item test file and then the two periods to move it into our parent directory. So I now want to set location in our parent directory. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll do set location into our parent directory, and here we are. But I mentioned earlier that there was another alias, which is the single period for our present working directory. Well, let me show you what I mean here. So let me clear the window first. Alright, and then we're going to use the get child item command once again. So now we can see what is in our current directory. Now the single period, even if you don't know the name of the present working directory, you can reference it, and this enables some you can be more versatile using these aliases when you're writing scripts and commands. So let's give it a try. Get child item, and in this case we're going to do a single period. Now let me be explicit about what's happening here. This single period is representing ep-1-PowerShell. That is because we are currently, it's our present working directory, and the period is the alias like we mentioned. So let's give it a try. Enter. And as you can see, even though when we enter this as a parameter, it's checking that path. And if you look here, that path is the exact same one as we're working in. So those are just some useful tips to help you understand navigating the command line, you know, doing anything you need to do from creating files to moving them and directories. And we'll go over how to make a directory in a future episode. On today's episode, I'd like to finish off showing you how to clean up these resources that we have used, such as the test directory and test file. Well, I'll show you one more tip or trick to use on top of a new command in order to show you to further reinforce what we've gone over today. So we'll do remove item following the verb noun pattern. And these are all commands that are CMDlets. They're built into PowerShell. If you're interested in learning more, I'd recommend tuning into future episodes or checking out the Microsoft website, which has very good documentation on PowerShell and a whole glossary of commands for you to peruse, to see all sorts of parameters that they take to do a whole assortment of tasks. But here, we're keeping it simple. We'll do remove item, test file, and I'd be careful here because you want to make sure you're removing the item that you actually want to remove. It could be easy to make a mistake here. But in this case, we're entering the parameter test file. So we'll hit enter. And there was no output, but let's clear the window real quick just to clean it up. And then we're going to use get child item once again to check our directory to see if the file has actually been deleted. And there we go. As you can see, this test directory is the only item, or in this case, it's the only folder within this directory, ep-1-PowerShell. So let me also, I want to reinforce more of what we had gone over today on top of that. So with the remove item command, it's not just files but folders that we can remove. And in this case, I want to show you a command. So if we do remove item, and this is a little unnecessary here, but I'm just trying to show you, because we're going to be using these aliases a lot in future episodes, and it's important to have it ingrained, especially if you would like to learn more about the command line. These are very useful for all sorts of tasks. So we'll do remove item, 2 dots, backslash, and now right here I want to show you what I'm referencing. These 2 periods represents the source directory because that is our parent folder. In our present working directory, which is ep-1-PowerShell, we're reaching into that directory with this backslash. So currently with these 2, that's our parent directory, we're entering the path of our parent directory, and we'll do, let's see, we'll remove, let's see, we're going to go to ep-1-PowerShell, and we're going to do another backslash. So now we're working in the ep-1-PowerShell file path. We're going to remove all the items within this folder. Now how can we do that? Well, there's another alias that I would like to show to you. It's the asterisk. So I'll show you in the command prompt. Pay attention to what I'm typing right here. That asterisk is known as a placeholder, and the asterisk signifies multiple items, especially in the case of if you do it like this. So it sort of looks like a face right here, but what this is signifying is that all files, this is a placeholder, so all files or folders with any file or folder extension. So the extension could be like JPEG in this example, or it could be PNG. But when you do it with the asterisk, you're signifying all files with all extensions. Doesn't matter which extension it is. So we hit enter. Now let's see, with that command we should have removed all files with all extensions in that directory. So let's do get child item to check. Well, in this instance we haven't seen anything removed, but that's because the directory is not a file. The directory is a directory and a file is a file. So if we had the test file in this case, that would have deleted the test file and any other files with any extensions. So we're going to finish this off by just removing the test directory. So we'll do remove item, just to show that this can also remove directories. We'll do remove item test directory. Alright, let's clear. Then we'll do get child item. And as you can see, there's nothing further in this directory. So we're definitely going to go more in depth with these aliases and these commands in future episodes. And if you're interested in learning more about PowerShell, or if you also want to learn about various tools, programs, and utilities, we're going to be going over all sorts of stuff in different series. This series being the PowerShell series. And I would recommend staying tuned if this interests you or if you would like to learn more. So hit that subscribe button and keep in touch. I would love some feedback. Like I mentioned, in future episodes, we're going to be going over scripting. We're going to be using more parameters to show how to create files and folders of various kinds, of how to automate that sort of thing. We're going to get through it all. So stay tuned, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.